Well, we've got some heavy rains to look forward to, especially later Wednesday into Wednesday evening as the Gulf of Mexico and the Atlantic are wide open, a strong cold front, and we have a tightening pressure gradient, which means we may see some strong wind gusts, especially along the coast. So we're going to be talking about all of that and see what happens beyond this particular weather system that's coming in tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. And of course, you can lend your support to the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast by shopping our referral link on Amazon this holiday season. And if you do, you just go there and get your stuff, use the search bar, buy whatever it is you're looking for. Amazon throws us back a little bit of coin out of their pocket and not yours. So you not only get to finish your holiday shopping with the great shopping experience that Amazon is, but it doesn't cost you a dime. So we appreciate the support that you give us here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. Monday night, the 9th of December, the days are just ticking away. Before you know it, it'll be Christmas and New Year's. And this front for Wednesday, Joe, is looking uh, pretty robust. The the folks at SPC must have been lurking in the background last night and heard you say about maybe putting in a marginal risk. And sure enough, late this afternoon, when they updated their forecast, there it was, the marginal risk, pretty much up and down the East Coast. Yeah.
Yeah, and as I said yesterday, this front, as you just pointed out, is really going to be loaded for bear. And a lot of times when you look for the potential for convection or the potential for severe weather, you look at at a number of different things. The Cape values, for example, and whether or not there's enough instability. But this thing is moving so rapidly. It's going to have a very rapid forward speed, and just by that sheer rapid forward motion, the lift, the atmosphere out ahead of it, it's almost going to be like the equivalent of, when you have a snow plow and you roll that plow along and you just push that snow and push it up. The atmosphere is just going to get pushed up out ahead of that frontal line on Wednesday, particularly, Joe, from about noontime or 1 o'clock on Wednesday to about 7 or 8 o'clock Wednesday evening. In that 6 or 7 hour time frame, that's when we're going to be seeing the strongest winds, which are going to be gusting from the south, right out ahead of that front, maybe as high as 30 or 40 miles an hour. You're going to be seeing rain, showery rains, the kind that come maybe in waves or bands, and with each wave you may get a sudden burst of heavy, if not torrential rain. And also with that, as we just mentioned, the Storm Prediction Center putting us in the chance for a marginal risk for severe weather. We could have a couple of gusty thunderstorms embedded in this line. I would not be surprised if we had even a squall line associated with this front. It's all going to come on through. Now, the first rains, I think, tomorrow, not until late in the day or tomorrow evening.
Right.
Much of the tomorrow should be dry, but late tomorrow, the first raindrops will begin to fall. Then we'll get some rain tomorrow night, not overly heavy. We picked up about 1/4 of an inch today in many areas. Tomorrow night, another maybe quarter to possibly a 1/2 inch. But the real heavy artillery with this front, this cold front, will not, as I say, arrive until sometime in the midday and afternoon hours on Wednesday. So the Wednesday afternoon commute home from work and school is going to be a tough one. I think we're going to be seeing the potential for urban flooding. We may have flooding in areas of poor drainage. Again, the fact that we're going to have those gusty, strong southerly winds with the rain will make it all the more difficult to maneuver or to move about on Wednesday afternoon. And then, just as quickly, once the front pushes on through, I think we're going to see the winds shift over into a gusty northwesterly direction, driving in a much colder airflow. Hey, by the way, on Wednesday, we may be looking at temperatures that will be close to records. I'm not as sure exactly what the record is at Central Park, Joe, but Here in the Hudson Valley, Westchester County Airport, 59, the record high on Wednesday,
Yeah.
set back not too long ago, 9 years ago in 2015, and we're going to be close to that. We're going to be in the 50s too, or even above 60 before that front moves on through on Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday evening. But then just as quickly as cold air advection barrels in behind that cold front, well, what a drop. Temperatures on Thursday may have a tough time cracking 40, and with the winds blowing, gusting out of the northwest, it'll feel a lot more like the 30s or maybe even the 20s. So, what a big change is coming our way for the middle of this week.
Also, it's going to be another round of lake effect snow warnings that are going to be going up in western New York, northwest Pennsylvania, maybe northeast Ohio too, and also up in north central New York. And this has been pretty much ongoing now since Thanksgiving, with short breaks in between. Uh, the one good thing about this is, well, there's a couple of good things. One is we'll probably pick up a solid two. I'm thinking at least 2 inches of rain for everybody, and maybe even 2.5 to three in southern and southeastern New England. So we keep chipping away at this rainfall deficit that settled in between September and November with all that, that month and a half, that rather 2 months where we had hardly any rain at all. So we're making up for it relatively quickly, and that's good. I'll be curious to see what the drought monitor looks like come Thursday.
Yes, it'll be, well, unfortunately, Joe, uh, while the drought monitor is issued at 7 o'clock in the morning on Thursday morning, uh, be advised that the data that we see on this coming Thursday's maps will be based upon information up until tomorrow,
Oh, so
not
Wednesday won't count. Okay.
Wednesday
Well,
will not count.
we'll have to wait a week then. We'll have to wait till next Thursday to see
Right.
some real impact. All right, welcome tonight, everybody on the chat board, and it's wonderful to see all the regulars here and a few additions. And welcome to those of you who are lurking in the background, like SPC and WPC. They love our show. Um, it's great to have all of you here. Don't forget that the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast is on Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. and the occasional Friday and Saturday when there's a storm around. So subscribe to my YouTube channel, turn your notifications on so you don't miss us. And if you like the show, we love when people hit the like button. So let's run through a few things here with regards to watches and warnings, and not a whole heck of a lot yet. My guess is we'll probably start to see things go up uh, tomorrow, if not the morning, certainly by the afternoon and evening. But we already have, well, there's winter weather advisories up for upstate New York, much of Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. And some of that is actually going to be ahead of all of this, and then there's going to be action going on behind it. Winter storm watches have already gone up for a couple of counties in north central New York, and also winter storm watches are up from Buffalo southwest into Erie County in northwestern Pennsylvania. So at least that is the beginning here of what will be another lake effect snow event that'll produce at least a foot of snow, if not 1 to 2 feet, right into Friday morning. Elsewhere around the country, we've got some flash flood watches up for southeast Louisiana. You can see a few red specks there. Those are flash flood warnings that are posted for a couple of parishes in Louisiana. There is a the red that you see in Southern California. That is for fire weather warning here, and the Santa Ana winds are going to be at play with very dry air blowing in and just inland of the coast from San Diego up to Santa Monica. You go inland, and you've got all these areas here that are under red flag warnings for fire danger. And in fact, they're calling this an SPC, who does the fire weather watches as well, does has indicated for extremely critical, is how they described it, with regards to the risk there in Southern
It's very
California.
unusual. It's very unusual, from what I've been told or what I've heard, to see a red flag warning in Southern California. That has rarely ever happened, but they are in, apparently they're in dire straits right now with a very strong Santa Ana wind, and of course, normally the Santa Anas are at their worst, or the heat is at its worst in September and October. We're in December now, and here we are talking about a very severe situation in terms of dry conditions and gusty, strong Santa Anas this late in the season. So it is rather unusual. And so, whereas we here in the Northeast over the next couple of days are going to be getting drenched with, especially on Wednesday, with heavy rainfall, the folks in the opposite part of the country, diagonally opposite actually, in the Southwest, are going to be dealing with extreme dry and hot conditions. Very unusual.
Right. Well, think back to those that 2 month stretch from September to November. I mean, we went weeks across the country with very little in the way of precipitation. I remember back, October going into November, how many days I was sort of twiddling my thumbs trying to figure out, okay, is there anything really that we could talk about other than the fact that it's so warm and dry. But in some ways, we're seeing the rubber band getting snapped back in the east. But if you look at the satellite loop in the west, it's except for the northwest, it's really just bone dry there. The Gulf is wide open. We had today's disturbance just rolling along. You can see that curl in the satellite loop moving through New England now and heading toward Nova Scotia and beyond, and then a little bit of a gap. And then we've got Gulf moisture spreading across the Gulf states and into the southeast. You can see clouds there. And then, of course, you've got the rotation with the upper air trough back in the northern plains that is going to set off the next wave. There's not a whole lot going on rain wise right now, but we are going to start to see rain develop ahead of that cold front in the Ohio Valley, the Tennessee Valley, and across the deep south. And again, it's wide open as far as moisture is concerned, heading up the eastern seaboard. So the back edge of this today's rain is now in western Connecticut, in central Long Island. There's some heavier rains in southeastern New England and around the Boston area at the moment. And if you go far enough north and into New Hampshire and Vermont, and northeastern New York, and even into parts of interior Maine, you've got some snow happening there. In the southeast, we're looking at, you see the green boxes in southeast Louisiana, flash flood warnings in those parishes, including, oh, not New Orleans, because New Orleans on south of Lake Pontchartrain. So on the North Shore there, near Slidell. We've got a flash flood warning up there. Heavy rains across southern Mississippi into southern Alabama. It's just to the north of Atlanta is where the radar echoes just start to cut off. They're right. I'm literally sitting right on the northern fringe of the rain echoes, and most of this batch is going to run out to the south. And then we have some precip aloft in Illinois and Indiana back through Missouri. Now this is part of the setup for the cold front that's coming and the wave actually there'll be a couple of waves that are going to develop there. A little bit of moisture from southeastern Colorado, some snow going on there. We had winter weather advisories up in some of the counties in south central and southeast Colorado, and it stretches out across central Kansas. And as we said, the west not doing much of anything. I'm jumping right. Well, you know what? Let's go back to tomorrow because we do have some severe weather risk tomorrow. Small area, Florida Panhandle, southern Alabama, southwest Georgia, under a marginal risk and a 2% tornado risk. And then Wednesday, so this is Wednesday into Thursday morning, but the bottom line is this is all during the day, Wednesday into Wednesday evening. Marginal risk from eastern North Carolina, eastern Virginia, just literally right up the coastal plain from North Carolina right up to the lower Hudson Valley, all of Connecticut, Rhode Island, Long Island, New York City, and into southeastern New England. I wonder if there'll be some tornado risk with this.
Um, my thoughts are with any severe weather alert or any severe weather threat, you cannot completely rule out a tornado or a funnel cloud or a downburst or whatever. And yeah, I wouldn't rule it out. It's not specifically on high on the checklist for this upcoming event on Wednesday, but still wouldn't be surprising.
Yes. Harry Mack, thanks for hitting the tip jar tonight. And the weather for Passaic, New Jersey. Well, you've just heard Joe and I described what's going on, so all of this is playing for you too, with heavy rain and gusty winds and the potential for severe weather on Wednesday with this approaching cold front. And the WPC, in terms of the rainfall amounts, that we could pretty much start to subtract out today already. This starts at 8 o'clock tonight, but we're talking about 2 inches here. Inch and a half line goes into central PA, right up through central New York. Some of that is going to be snow in the lake effect areas in north central New York, particularly. In western New York, we're looking at a half to 3/4, and there's a small area of an inch and a half being indicated right around Buffalo. I was reading the Buffalo forecast, and they're talking about at least a foot there of lake effect snows. The precip tails off as you go back to the Great Lakes, and I think what you're seeing there is also probably going to be some lake effect going on with the cold air. And also, we've got rain down in the Gulf states, it's like giving me a couple of inches of rain here. Just uh, hope it plays out so that it's mostly gone by Wednesday morning. And in the West, from San Francisco northward, we're seeing the introduction of some heavier rains over the next 7 days of several inches or more, riding up the immediate coast in through Oregon and Washington State and over into British Columbia. I just want to go back to SPC for a moment and go to the fire danger. So in Southern California, it's that red area is critical. Okay, and for Tuesday, we're looking at this is Tuesday into Wednesday morning. They have an area of extreme on the northern end. So we're talking about that area that's up north, just inland, going inland from near Santa Monica. They got an area of extreme fire danger being indicated there. It's pretty. You're right. This is a little unusual. This is very unusual for this time of year. Uh, I don't you don't see them throw up extreme that often.
Right, and yeah, it's a very interesting. Here's a $5 word for you. An interesting climatological or meteorological dichotomy between what we're going to be seeing over the next 24 to 48 hours, both in the far southwest versus the northeast. As I said, you can draw a diagonal line from southwest to northeast, exceedingly dry with warnings and advisories and thoughts upon the potential for wildfires and dry conditions again in California, Southern California, versus the extreme wetness that will be occurring in parts of the mid-Atlantic and the northeastern United States with that sharp cold front that'll be moving on through later Wednesday and Wednesday night.
So here's the upper air, and I just want to show you what's going on aloft with all of this. So here's this is right now, and the shortwave trough in the upper atmosphere that produced the rain today is now moving offshore, and you can see it's just like a little gentle kink in the overall flow. It's nothing exceptional, but then you look back out to the west and you see the energy that's over the western lakes and also down into the central plains. Two short waves there, and they're going to phase together. And I mean, this is a powerhouse trough. I think the one thing that saves us from something even worse is the fact that the trough axis is fairly far to the west. It's running right up and down west of the Mississippi River. So if it were further east, we probably would be, in deeper hot water, in a deeper situation. Nonetheless, this is a really sharp, negatively tilted arm that lifts right up northeast. This is Wednesday night. So we're talking about a powerhouse trough here that's going to be impacting the weather in the eastern part of the United States. Now, behind it, the trough actually lifts out fairly quickly. So the models have kind of backed away with the idea of bringing cold air significant cold air all the way south. Instead, it seems to be a bit more glancing in nature because of the fact that this trough is phasing so far west. But nonetheless, it is going to get cold behind this front for Thursday and Friday and into early Saturday morning before temperatures bounce up again. And then after that, since I already have the map up, I might as well just keep going and widen out. Uh, as we go through the weekend, we start to get into a warmer a warmer setup, although there's a short wave that comes out of the plains and goes into the Great Lakes over the weekend. So that might bring some rain showers into the east on Sunday. And then over the longer term, it looks like there's some kind of diver that comes down from Minnesota to just off of New Jersey and Long Island, the middle part of next week. And then another trough follows that. You can see a big ridge is building out in the western part of the United States late next week. And the model responds to that by creating yet another trough for the weekend of the 21st, 22nd, and then that pulls out, and then more troughs are dropping into the east, but they're dropping right along the coast. So it's you're not going to get big storms out of these things as they go by.
Right, and just looking over here, the most recent posting by Dr. Judah Cohen, he only posted something 3 hours ago. Oh, lovely. Thank you very much.
What was
Something
that?
went wrong. Try reloading. Retry. I'm retrying. Your account may not be allowed to perform this action. Please refresh the page and try again.
Or
You
ask
know,
your operator for assistance. This is a
oh yeah,
recording.
ex- exactly. So much for Dr. Judah Cohen. Um, what were we talking about?
Uh, the fact that uh, troughs are dropping into the eastern part of the United States going forward, but that they're dropping literally near the
Yeah,
coast, and that really doesn't support big storms in the east.
the thing is, I think after we go through this little atmospheric hemorrhage midweek, Joe, it's looking pretty much to me like the next week or 10 days will be relatively tranquil here
Yeah.
with a gradual moderation in temperature after that shot of cold that we're going to be going through on Thursday and Friday. But it really doesn't look like we're going to be seeing much happening here after Wednesday of this week. No major storms, no major fronts, no shots of any extreme cold or gusty winds or whatever. We may actually, after this midweek period, we may actually go right on up to the Christmas holiday with not much to worry about.
Well, I'm not going to disagree. We'll look at the ensembles in a little bit. Back to the short range. So, just to show you how the GFS is pretty bullish here. You got this wave that starts to develop. Let me just roll this down so we can take a look, make sure we got the date and time on the screen there. So this is tomorrow afternoon, and this is what the radars are supposed to look like, uh, according to the GFS. You have a low there in eastern Kentucky that runs up into western Pennsylvania. You can see the frontal line that forms from South Carolina down to Louisiana tomorrow afternoon and evening, and then suddenly everything starts to gel up as one wave goes up into western New York and dies out. A new one forms in West Virginia, heads up into Pennsylvania by Wednesday morning, and then yet another wave, and this will be the strongest of the three, will form Wednesday afternoon. You see that low in southeast PA, and all the stronger echoes through eastern Pennsylvania down into South Carolina. And yeah, there's some snow behind that in western PA down into West Virginia and western North Carolina. And then the low quickly jumps up. It moves from southeast PA to southern Vermont in about 6 hours. Try doing that by car. But you can see how convective it looks. Also, it doesn't show up. It's hard to see on this map, so I'll switch over to the other one where the isobars are darker. I believe the GFS, the winds may actually along the coast start cranking Tuesday night and then really pick up during the day on Wednesday into Wednesday evening. And I'm going to go to the pivotal weather so we can look at some of the wind gusts that are being forecast. And then you start to see as on the back side, we've got the northwest gradient very tight. Wednesday night and Thursday, the lake effect machine is working overtime into Friday morning. The high settles into upstate New York and goes into New England. And now we've got that, I mentioned that next system that's coming uh, to the Great Lakes, and it pushes some rain showers with a weak front on Sunday. And then another one follows that with some showers maybe on Monday night, Tuesday. There's some cold air behind each of these, not a lot. Um, Particularly the system that's shown to come through on Tuesday gets a little colder again into the middle of next week, and then yet another system with a weak low up in Lake Huron and a front that trails down the coast with rain up and down the eastern seaboard. This would be for Friday on the 20th if the GFS holds to form. Another diver comes down behind that with some colder air into the eastern part of the United States going into the 22nd and 23rd. But again, there's nothing major here. Uh, but you know, just that we're getting these. It's just cold front after cold front after cold front. And if we widen out just to look at what's going on in the West, we can see how these systems all progress with respect to the whole country. But you've got finally some moisture and even some snow coming for the Sierra Nevadas and into interior Oregon and Nevada come Wednesday night and Thursday, but rain not getting down into Southern California. And then you start to see waves of rain that come into the Pacific Northwest. But it is a pattern where the southern part of the jet stream is, we don't have any kind of split flow. It's you're not really getting anything coming in and moving across the southern stream. So Joe, kind of go along with you. We're going to have weather systems to deal with from time to time, but after Wednesday's system, it doesn't look like we have anything major heading into the Christmas holidays. Now that we can come in tomorrow and Wednesday and Thursday and start to see the models change a bit. But for now, it looks relatively docile.
Well, I finally did get Dr. Cohen's opinion. He actually has issued a blog as a uh, pre-Hanukkah gift to his readers. And this year Hanukkah comes rather late. It comes, I think, on the same day as Christmas, December 25th. But anyway, what he's saying is that he's thinking that it's going to be a case of rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
He has a stretched polar vortex now. He says then it will become more circularized next week, which means that temperatures which will be cold later this week will moderate some as we move into next week, and then another, and in his opinion, the most significant stretched polar vortex of the season coming our way just about the same time as the beginning of astronomical winter. That would be around the 21st or 22nd of December, which may mean a shot of cold air again coming our way for the end of December, or just in time for the end of the year. But he also says that he can't really tell. You look at the operational models, and they're so volatile. It's difficult. There's so much noise, so to speak, in trying to forecast using the operationals, and even the ensembles are making things a bit tricky. But he says this could very well be a case where, for a while, longer term, we could see stretched polar vortexes, and then we have or vortices, and then we go back to a circular polar vortex, and then go back to stretched polar, an alternating period or an alternating pattern over a span of, 1 or 2 weeks. Then we have a quiet period and another 1 or 2 weeks, blah, 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 right on into the beginning of the astronomical winter season. So it's not going to be a case of one of those winters where it's never going to get cold. He's alluding that there are going to be periods of cold weather, but alternating at least with periods of mild weather, and whether or not we get any stormy weather, which might lead to some snowy conditions during those periods of cold weather, I guess we're just going to have to wait and see.
I just pulled up the European 500, and you could see going into that week, the 19th and 20th, that you start to see ridging building up the west coast into Canada and troughing running from Hudson Bay to just off the southeast coast of the United States. The trough axis is like basically right along 75 or so. But I mean, that's a cold look going into Christmas. And, it's, you got blockiness across the higher pressures across the polar regions. Everything is displaced further south, but you don't have any kind of feed uh, this from the southern part of the jet stream. In fact, there's one system that comes into the west that just basically locks itself away over the Baja Peninsula around Christmas Day. But you know what? I'd rather see the models do this, okay, than show a mega snowstorm in the long range. Because the mega snowstorm in the long range is not going to happen. So I'd rather the models do what they're doing because oftentimes when it's like that, well, as you get closer and models start to pick up on things that they can't see at this point, uh, is when you wind up, all of a sudden you got a low that seems to pop out of nowhere, and we wind up getting something. And I'm just, the
Right.
European, yeah. So I think you should, if you're a snow lover, I think you want to see, you don't want to see the models showing all this, nonsense in the long range because it almost never happens. In fact, I can't remember the last time something happened. And the ensembles, I think Judah Cohen's right. It's like every day it's something slightly different. Yesterday we had an ensemble look on the European and the GFS that looked encouraging. You know, this one is sort of It's nothing really to write home about. So we have that. I'm sorry, that's the GFS. And if we look at the European, the EPS, let's look at the European now. The European ensembles um, is the same thing. It's sort of like you know, it's you just go duh. All right, this is some of the
And, it,
pivotal.
it, and just to a quote from again Dr. Cohen in his analysis of future days and weeks, he says not only is the washing machine not broken, but the polar vortex is in a hypercycle of rinse, lather, and repeat. And that's how he defines or describes what we're looking at in the coming days and weeks ahead. So we'll see how this all pans out in the overview of things.
Well, I'm going to bring them up 'cause I haven't looked at the polar vortex today, so we could see what he's talking about here. So this is all right. So this is now now where it's kind of going into a stretched mode, and then it pulls up. It gets a little more circular, and then it starts to stretch again toward the end of the forecast period. So
Right, that's what he said. He
yeah,
said
it's exactly what
one
it's going to
week
be. It's going to be an ebb and flow, ebb and flow. Maybe that's how the winter's going to be, ebbing, back and forth, back and forth.
it's like a piece of chewing gum.
Yeah, exactly. Once the sugar runs out, you really want to spit it away.
Yeah,
So GFS rainfalls for Wednesday. And there's still some of today in here, but we're looking at almost 2.5 to 3 inches across New England. And you got this area of 2 inches that comes back to about New York City. So they got pretty numbers like 1.7, 1.8, some 2 inch amounts back in the Catskills and in parts of Northeast PA. Some inch and a half to 2 inch amounts in South Jersey, which really didn't get that much today. So I'm sure the folks there where the drought's gotten really bad. We're seeing inch and a half to 2 inch amounts being played out by the GFS. We can go to the European and look what the European is doing with respect to precip, and it's about this. It's pretty much the same. I noticed today that the GFS and the European are very, very close, not just in the short range, but even in their views of the long range. But yes, some heftier amounts in New England down to Long Island. I think to go for an inch and a half to 2.5 inches of rain seems fair to me. And we can look at the wind gusts. So this is the Europeans' wind gusts. If I got this right, let's see if these are the 18Z runs. So it just came out the 18Z. So 1 p.m. Wednesday, we've got gusts of 30 to 40, except for the immediate coast. Right along the coast, it's higher. Brentwood's at 43. And then at 7 p.m., uh, Brentwood is 55, and you got yellow here across central and eastern Long Island, which would be gusts of 60 to 65, 61 at Providence, 64, excuse me, at Norwich, 58 at Worcester, 53 in Boston, 49 in Barnstable, uh, 30 to 40 in inland. Maybe we'll probably wind up with wind advisories, I'm guessing. And there you have it, just rolling back here. And then as we move into Thursday morning, the gusts during the day on Thursday are 35 to 40. So you're blowing away here. And the GFS cranks the wind up a little sooner. So we'll take a look at this. Let's go to if I can find it. Where'd they go? The wind. GFS 18Z. Where are those? This is the one thing I dislike about pivotal weather is it's very hard to read this stuff. The menu. So 10-meter AGL wind gusts. There we go. So on the GFS, there's not much until we get to at 10 p.m. tomorrow night. It's already forecasting gusts to 30 from Long Branch southward down to Delaware. And then suddenly by 7 a.m., it's 42 miles an hour at Toms River and Long Branch, 42 at Brentwood, 36 at New York City, 40 at New York City at 7 a.m., 42 at Brentwood. And then at 10 a.m., it's, 30 to 40 inland, 40 or plus right along the coast. And then the strongest winds between 1 and 7. Now at 7 p.m., the GFS has wind gusts of 54 at Toms River, 59 at Long Branch, 52 at New York City, 51 at Yonkers, 60 at Bridgeport, 57 at Brentwood, and 45 to 55 across much of New England. You usually want to cut those numbers back down by about 10%, at least. And at 7 p.m., the GFS is a little bit faster because at 7 p.m. the winds actually start to drop off a bit uh, from New York City west, but there's still 50 to 60 across eastern Long Island and southeastern New England. So if you want to be, if you want to, you're putting out a forecast. I mean, I would say, 40 to 50 along the coast is certainly possible. 30 to 40 certainly possible for winds in inland areas on Wednesday. And then, of course, that doesn't include, severe thunderstorms that might be in isolated severe thunderstorms that might be in the mix.
Yes, and most of the models seem to be coming up with a mean or an average of about an inch and a half in terms of QPF, quantitative precipitation amounts. However, toss in the fact that some of this moisture is of a tropical nature and that some of it may be associated with convection. That could, as we see during the summertime, Joe, easily double. And so there may be some spots before Wednesday is over that pick up in excess of 3 inches of rain. Not saying everybody's going to see that, but wouldn't be surprised if that were the case. So again, it's something that we'll be keeping an eye on, but it is going to be a very volatile, very active time frame, especially as I said, from about midday to early evening on Wednesday, as that weather front actually passes right straight through the tri-state area with its whole array of gusty winds and heavy rains and showery rains and downpours, and it's going to be rough. That Wednesday afternoon commute home from work or school is really going to be rough.
All right, I just pulled up. Let me see. Do I have? Let me bring this on the screen. Just pull up the 3 kilometer NAM for tomorrow and Wednesday, and it's got a nice looking squall line here. I mean, look at this. It's got some heavier downpours that roll through Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, and then you get the big stuff Wednesday afternoon and evening. It's got a wicked looking squall line there in eastern Pennsylvania at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Actually, it runs from about Albany to just east of Scranton and over Allentown, and then cuts down through Delaware into eastern Virginia. I mean, it's literally a stick, a very thin stick squall line that rolls by. So, oftentimes in these sorts of situations, the NAM3 uh, picks out these sort of these squall lines that tend to pop up with these strong polar boundaries. that are moving through. So it's pretty impressive from this particular model's standpoint. So there's that. So I mean, I think it's going to be a rough Wednesday no matter what. I mean, we could tomorrow night we could probably fine tune it a little bit more, but it does look like it's going to be a very rough day, Wednesday into Wednesday evening. Tom Contino, you were asking about Pivotal and the differences. Now, I have the licensed version of Pivotal Leather for commercial use, which is allows me to show it on the air. And what I like about it is that uh, it does have so, well, up until very recently, you were able to go out to 360 hours on a lot of the models where the GFS on tropical tidbits, some of the models on tropical tidbits, it was not the case. It also allows you to get those small local maps that I just put up where it prints out the numbers. So when it comes time to those storms that prints 50-inch snow amounts for Boston, or for New York City or for wherever it does, um, you could see those on Pivotal. And just if you want to actually see what the numbers that the models print out literally. So I kind of like it from that respect, especially in a situation like this when I was trying to look at some specific wind gust forecasts that are model based. It works for me. So and it works for everybody here because I get to show it to you because I have the commercial license for it. Okay, Thriller Jeopardy, shall we?
Yes, surely.
Surely. Okay, so we're on snow in December's average snowfalls for the month of December for the following cities, beginning with Salt Lake City, Joe. Salt Lake City.
Oh God. Well, Salt Lake City. I mean, Utah likes to proclaim itself as the snow capital of the world, or at least of the United States. Um, so Salt Lake City in December, I am the fog. I'll say 18.
18 is actually a bit high. Rich Rothmansky, Bill Uber, and Steve Lapointe and Mark Franz all say 13. And you're close. Okay. And Vincent Croce gets it at 12. Give Vincent Croce a bell ring.
Yay!
Seattle.
Congratulations.
As far as
Two,
Seattle is concerned, as I was just going to say, as far as Seattle is concerned, there's only two numbers that you should consider. Now, you just said one of those numbers, and that was what?
two.
Two. So John,
I think I was being generous by saying that, but I'll
right.
say it anyway.
Well, Mike Waterhouse Bonsai, John Sachs, Chuck Cardillo, Steve Lapointe, and William Uber and Norm Roberts all agree with you with saying two, and so does Miss Fowlerite with two. And the answer is two, two, two mints in
Yay!
one. Do they still have certs? Do they
That's a good question.
do they still have certs?
I have not seen a search commercial in a long, long
No.
time.
St. Louis.
St. Louis. Um, I'll say 4.
Ring the bell for yourself, Joe Rayo.
Oh my
Four
goodness!
is the correct
Look at that.
answer. Yes, Mark France Sr., Dentine. I remember Dentine. Um, Trident was the one that was 4 out of 5 dentists surveyed recommend sugarless gum for their patients who chew gum. Okay. Number 4 tonight is Virginia Beach.
Virginia Beach. Well, that's um, 3.
3 is too high.
Okay.
Anthony and Melander, Uber, Josie, Mark France Sr., Chuck Cardillo, Frank Scalera, Ms. Fowlerite, and all the saints who have done your will throughout the ages. It's one, one. And
We, I interrupt Briller Jeopardy for this special announcement as to answer a question which was asked just literally 2 minutes ago about certs.
Oh, okay.
And certs, certs was the original classic mints,
Yes.
disc shape without a hole, sold in a roll, packaging similar to Lifesavers. It was one of the first mints to be nationally marketed in the United States and was a fixture at American drugstores and convenience stores since its debut on the market, the same year that I made my debut on the market, 1956. However, here's the answer to the question, Joe. It was discontinued in
Oh,
2018. And the reason
really?
Reason it was discontinued was due to its containing partially hydrogenated cottonseed oil, which is an ingredient which has not been allowed in food sold in the United States since 2018. So there you go.
Oh, okay.
You cannot get certs anymore. You cannot get two mints in one because it contains hydrogenated, partially
Partially
hydrogenated
hydrogenated.
cottonseed oil.
Okay. And
And by the way, they were previously the owners of certs. There were several owners: American Chickle, Warner Lambert, Pfizer, and believe it or not, Cadbury at
mm,
one time owned certs classic mints. Two mints in one, the right amount of mint.
oh, okay. Fun
Back,
facts. Yes.
and now back to Bill
Regina
Curry.
Belmont. Washington D.C.
Ah, Washington D.C.
Washington D.C.
How about two?
Ring the bell for yourself too.
Ding, ding, ding.
Um,
It's getting
okay,
easier.
and the bonus, and you need to know this, Joe, because you're going to be buried at the Raccoon National Cemetery. Bismarck, North
Bismarck,
Dakota.
North Dakota. Ha!
If you're going to be buried there, you need to know this. Bismarck, North Dakota, for the
Bismarck,
month
North
of
Dakota.
December.
Oh, God. What did we say the other night for Minnesota? For Minneapolis
I
or
don't
whatever?
remember.
I don't remember either. Um, I don't know. I don't think it's a whole heck of a lot. I think it's something, maybe it's like nine.
So close. Maggie P and Chuck Cardillo got it though with 10,
Wow.
and David Scott also 10. And also Northern Grace. And Miss Blue Ocean, being honest, I have no idea, she says. So that's all right. So,
Vincent Crochet, 64.
but, oh, good Lord. All right. So I think we kind of covered everything tonight. We covered all bases. 50
Yeah,
minute
speaking of
show.
bases, I
Can't
did see like
complain.
early in the first half of this show on the chat board, more people were talking about um, Juan Soto's contract with the Mets more than they were talking about base. More they were talking more about baseball than weather. And Tom Contino, you say that the Yankees should be hanging their head in shame for allowing the Mets to outbid or get Soto from them. Quite frankly, I am not happy with this Juan Soto deal. I really am not, because what it means to me is that when we come to the 2025 baseball season, to park your car at Citi Field is
I was going
probably
to
going to be,
say ticket prices and parking prices are going to go up.
oh my God, Joe, I think to park a car at Citi Field this past season was $40. $40 just to
That's
park a car.
ridiculous. You know, that is ridiculous. When I think, by the way, we got 94 likes, so we're getting close to 100. Now, look, I
Yeah,
understand, I was thinking today about how when I used to go visit my grandmother who lived on First Avenue between 119th and 120th Street, we would always get 35, we would get uh, 50 cents. So for 35 cents, you'd get a slice of pizza. For 15 cents more, you'd get a slice of pizza and a Coke. Okay. Now, obviously, that ain't the case these days. I don't even know what a slice of pizza goes for. But uh, I used to go to a ball game with money I earned from my paper route. I used to go to the Yankee game, sit in the grandstand for $1.50, get a couple of hot dogs, get a soda, and then money for subway money to get to and from, and still had a couple of dollars left over at the end of the day. I mean, it's just ridiculous. You want to go to a ball game, a baseball game, between the seats and the parking and the food you're going to buy, and if you bring it's a family of four, you're going to spend like $500. That's just nuts. I'm sorry,
Well,
it's just nuts.
get ready for $25 hot dogs,
Well, how much are they
$30.
now?
According to Frank Scalera at Yankee Stadium, it's $9 for a hot dog, but that could easily double. If it's the same at Citi Field, that could easily double after they sign. Now that they've signed this guy, because they're going to need to, you know, pass along the expense of signing this guy onto the fans. I mean,
And,
where else are they going to get the money? It's
and by the
seven.
way, and I haven't been to an Atlanta Braves game, but from what my friends have told me, the cost is much more reasonable. Food costs are nothing like what we're talking about here for the Yankees and the Mets. I mean, it's much more reasonable. The parking is reasonable. The ticket prices are more reasonable. You don't have to spend a week's salary to go to a ball game. I mean, that's just crazy. It's just
And I can
absolutely
remember,
crazy.
and I can remember back in the day buying cartons of little cartons about this size, yay big, of Borden's milk,
Yeah, I
and
remember.
you would cut a
You clip the
coupon out,
coupon. Yeah,
right? And if you get 15 coupons, you can go to Shea Stadium and sit in the standing room only area. That was
right.
like a buck and a half or whatever, but you still got in for hardly anything. And
Yeah,
even at back then, the field box seats, which were the most expensive seats back then, $3.50.
I know,
I don't
right?
I don't even know what the heck it is to cost to sit at the field level of at Citi Field.
Yeah,
But you,
my father used to get box seats for four. They were $4 a piece.
yeah,
Now I understand we're talking night money, $4 in the early 1970s, which was or the late 1960s, early 1970s, which is basically $40 or $50 now. But still, it's just the price. You're paying these outrageous salaries, but you know what? That's what the marketplace bears. They got all these TV contracts, and no, it's all nuts. It's just all nuts.
and
But
this is a 15-year contract with this guy, which means he would, if he stays on the Mets for the whole 15, he'll be 41. Let me point out, and you don't have to listen to me. Go online, go on Wikipedia, do a little bit of research yourself. Look at some of the great ball players of the past that have managed to play into their early 40s. Willie Mays was a shell of his former self when he was 42 years old or 41 years old and finished his career with the Mets. Mike Piazza completely fell apart once he got past the age of 35. I mean, any ball player that's in his late 30s or near 40 is not going to be anywhere near where he is in his prime. And the Mets are presumably are going to be paying this guy at 41 years of age still 51 million, unless the guy decides that he's going to get his agent to try to bump those numbers up even higher. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And I for one, you know, the man was with the Yankees last year. They went to the World Series last year. I mean, if I'm on a winning team and I have a chance to get into the World Series again, I stay with that team. I don't look for the team or another team to outbid the Yankees so that I can make more money. If that's what you're in it for, if you're just in it for the money, I don't want you. I really don't want you.
right.
I want a ball player that wants to
Well,
win
I was
and to
trying to
win at any
remember.
cost.
I was trying to remember who was that Met player that they paid a whole ton of money for, and he didn't, hardly played. They basically wasn't playing anymore. They
Well,
always
the
made
Mets
they
have.
made jokes about it for years. I forgot his name, and like they're still apparently they're still paying him.
Bobby Bonilla.
Was that who it
Bobby
was?
Bonilla. Every year on July the 1st, it's Bobby Bonilla Day. He is getting paid. He worked out a special deal with the Mets where he didn't get paid all at once. He's getting paid over a
Right, they
span
get
of
deferred compensation.
right, and he's going to continue to get paid something like $1.8 million every year on the 1st of July until the year 2035.
Okay,
And July 1st is known in Met Annals as Bobby
Bobby
Bonilla
Bonilla
Day.
Day.
Yeah.
Well, we got
Wouldn't you love,
101.
Joe, wouldn't you love to look forward every year to a specific, like, let's say it's February 1st. You knew that on February 1st you're going to be getting a check for $1 million every year. Could you live on that for a year?
Well, you know, our contracts with the network gives us, almost that much money every year,
Oh yeah, yeah.
into perpetuity. Yeah. Well, you know what? We got 100 likes, 102 likes.
Oh,
So,
102. Thank you.
yes, thank
Thank
you
you.
very much.
Yes.
All right, folks. So we'll be back tomorrow night at 7:35 p.m. Eastern Time. And also, just a reminder, the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast is live here from live here, 7:35, Sunday through Thursday. But if you missed the show, you can always watch it. It's in the my show library on YouTube, so you can always watch it later on or tomorrow morning or whenever. And we're also on the podcast is also on all the pod places that call podcasts home like Spotify. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're on YouTube Podcasts. We're on, there's a whole bunch. I can't even remember all of them. So wherever you like to go for we're even on Amazon Music. So you can always find us. We're out there somewhere. And that's it. So we'll see everybody tomorrow night. Okay.
Tomorrow night, one night away from the storm. We'll talk to all of you then.
Bye bye.